Good morning, Denise Dryden here. Today I'm in Edmonds, Washington, which is across the ferry from Kingston. And Kingston is sort of next, it's just off of Bay Bridge. And I'm standing in front of the Olympic Beach Visitor Center, and there's seals and there's tide pools, and it's just fascinating. So I thought it was the perfect place to talk about parenting a highly sensitive child through space and time. So I'm just going to dive right in, okay? And notice there's going to be some people walking around and giving me funny looks because I'm out of the wind right here and right in front of everybody. So last week we talked about this or something more, right? And this or something more sort of brought together 7 different ideas and topics about what to do with how to become more aware, how to become more present as a parent. And I evidently picked a really popular spot to talk. Go ahead.
I thought you were talking to somebody.
I am. I'm videotaping. It's okay. So to repeat now, what I want to do is go back and revisit those 7 things, but from the parenting perspective of parenting a highly sensitive child. And the reason I'm doing that is because it's going to be really interesting. Parenting is about guiding, mentoring, stewarding, and especially when you have a highly sensitive child, it requires a different skill set, right? You can tell I'm a little distracted. And according to Elaine Aron in her HSP highly sensitive person research, she's now increased the percentages of highly sensitive people on the planet from 15 to 20 to 25 to 35, which means that 1 out of every 4 or 1 out of every 3 people on our planet are coming up with these neurological significant differences that are highly sensitive. And tap, it's genetic, right? So it comes down through the family line. So there's a really good chance that you also might be, if you are noticing that your child is extremely sensitive, you might be sensitive yourself. And I thought that would be a really good way to sort of loop it all together. And then so as a parent, what we're going to do is we're going to reframe. We're going to sort of learn about how to be more compassionate with ourselves. What we can do when we are sensitive, and maybe we were really sensitive as little kids, and we sort of increase the way that we use our tools with our sensitive kiddos. So what do I mean by space and time? So we're going to talk about space and time today. So time is linear. It's minute by minute, moment by moment. It has hours, it has 24 hours, it has full days, and it moves progressively from 1 minute after the other. And we have obligations, we have commitments, we have schedules that go within those time frames. And the 2 most important ones, of course, are, well, 3 actually, but the third one. The 2 most important are work and school, and then the third one is sleep. And I was sort of waved off like, then that can move around and go up or down. However, we all need sleep. We definitely need to work in order to make an income or find out where that's coming from. And if you have kids between the ages of 5 and 18, they need to be in school, at least according to the state you live in. So those are the things that we're going to deal with, right? Sometimes these linear points of time can cause enormous conflicts or struggles within a family system, within a parent-child relationship. And anyone who's trying to get a kid out the door so you can get to work, or so that your kid can get to school on time, you know what I'm talking about. And even the best planned strategies, we can get them up early. We can do whatever we need to do to make it all work, right? And something's going to happen occasionally, whether it's 3 times a week, 5 days a week, or at least once a week, where we're going to have an explosion. Something's not going to work, or it's going to be really, really hard to get a reluctant child in the car and off to school, especially when they get older, when they're teenagers. Preschool, elementary, and teenagers. Boy, there's like a few years in between where it might get a little easier. So what I want to look at is why do these sort of rubs come up? Why do these struggles? Why is there this resistance? And so take a minute and recall, like, when was the last one that happened? What was that about? What do you think was going on? And think about the transition from one time to another, and whether it's transitions or whether it's the way you set it up, or just sort of notice for a minute and then just hold on to that. Okay, hold on to that, because what we're going to do now is move over to the second concept, which is space. What do you know about space? I broke it down to some things that came up for me this morning, and I thought I would share them. There's going to be a whole lot more, obviously. But space is the break in between events. It's the space in between maybe school and dinner. It could be the space in between the time you get off work and the time you go to bed. It could be the space in between the time that you finish eating and you pick up the dishes and you go to the dishes. It doesn't really matter. It's any event. One thing to the other, there's a little bit of space in between. That space offers downtime. It offers restorative time. It offers some rejuvenation. It's kind of like, dinner's over, everyone's finished, we can just sort of sit here for a little while, or everyone can scamper off and I can just sit here and just enjoy my space, right? And that's where I rejuvenate myself. At least I did when my kids were younger. It's informative. It's the time when thoughts come up, when our feelings and our stories and our intuition and our knowing sort of comes in and weaves it in. So do our feelings. So if we're trying to avoid our feelings, we're not going to create a lot of space, right? We're going to make sure space doesn't happen, because we're going to schedule things one after the other, because we don't want that information coming in. And I spent way too many years doing that. Our creativity resides in space. We expand time when we're in the space. Have you ever noticed that 5 minutes can go by, but it felt like an hour when you finally get to that place where everything's kind of working? We can expand time. Our breathing relaxes and our heart rate engages with our breath, which means that they're in partnership. Our breathing and our heart rate start to work together, and we balance. And what I'm going to say is that our anxiety levels go down. When we give ourselves some really good quality space, our anxiety levels go down. And for a kid with anxiety, this is enormous. This is huge. This is also the place where, as I said, our intuition and our messages and our confirmations and our ahas, they come through when we have some space, when we have some space to talk. Now, it isn't always sedentary. Space can be walking, it could be running, it could be hiking, it could be kayaking, it could be standing over here and watching the ferry come in, which it just did, which was so cool. It came in while I was recording. It could be working on a hobby. It could be, as I've said before, woodworking, knitting. Space can even be that beautiful process of putting some music on and washing the dishes one at a time and getting lost in your thoughts. It's repetitive motions. It's anything that relaxes you. And so I also want to put video games in there. There's a lot of video games for kids are about space. They kind of tune out the music after a while, or the sounds, but they're sort of working step by step, area by area to get something done. So what else creates space for you? What else do you know? Okay? When parenting a sensitive child, there's this really tricky balance between space and time, right? Which is, I need to hold to these commitments, but I need to give my kiddo lots of space. And then I need to build space around these commitments, and it's not always easy. So what I want you to do is, it's really key to focus on what happens when linear time and structure and space meet, and what happens when you stop and you look at your kiddo and you go, oh, we have a space and time issue. I need to do something differently. I need to create more space around time and allow some of these transitions to be just a little bit easier, right? And what I want you to pay attention to is, when and where is your kiddo resistant? When are they hyper vigilant? Like, no, I'm just not going, you can't make me. I'm seeing more and more kids in the treatment support that I provide with kids, high school kids that are refusing to go to school, like not even getting up. There's nothing mom and dad can do to get them out of bed. And that ends up being really frustrating, because there's nothing we can do to force, push, entice, beg a kid to go to school. There's reluctance. And then look at it. Is it at school? Is it the teacher? Is it the classroom? Is it kids in the classroom? Is it the noise? Is it the fact that it's too loud? I mean, really do some exploration with your child to find out what is it about school that you don't like. Can you help me out? Help me understand what works and what doesn't work. Is it that it's just too busy or there isn't enough time? Thank you. I've got a couple hearts going across the screen. So space and time is also comes into effect after school when we're talking about activities and scheduling. Now, when we're working and we need our kids to be busy, that doesn't necessarily help us with a sensitive child who really needs space and time. So the most difficult thing for a highly sensitive person is to be overscheduled. What ends up happening is it triggers their sympathetic and their parasympathetic nervous system. It drops cortisol, and then the cortisol builds up, and then we have what can look like an over-agitated child, an over-agitated teen, and then a teen or a kiddo who cannot go to sleep at night because their cortisol levels are so high. And then we can't get them to sleep, and then we can't get them up in the morning, and it's an entire cycle. And you can see how it just goes one after the other after the other. So for today, there's some constructs that exist in our life, right? We do have school, we do have work, and we know that we need space, and we know that we need time. So now we get to be these creative problem solvers like, how do I build my awareness of space and time? How do I create it in my family system? And how do I get more information about what works and what doesn't work? And keep in mind that space and time can be internal, and it can be external. It can be driven by thoughts and stresses and fears like, are my parents getting a divorce? How come they're fighting all the time? To, I'm failing in a classroom, or I don't like my teacher, or this kid sitting next to me bugs me all day long. These are the kind of internal stressors that are going to drive the highly sensitive kiddo into a lot more anxiety, stress, and as a parent, we have to find out how to navigate through that. We also have to find out how to navigate through our own stuff. Are we stressed? Are we pushing too many activities and trying to do too much? And then we're coming in all agitated and we're trying to direct our kids and thinking we're giving them space, but what we're really doing is we're putting our agitation on them. And remember, a highly sensitive kiddo is aware of all of this. And all of these pieces influence them, affect them, right? So this is a really good tool to use today and going forward, because it's a way to understand chaos, right? When there's chaos internally, externally, when there's chaos in the home, when there's chaos in the school, when there's chaos in the community, when there's chaos nationally, or when there's chaos globally. How do we understand how to use space and time to our advantage and to separate out of what causes it and create a more balanced life? We've seen, mindfulness, balancing for so long without understanding why it's important. Now what we want to do is we want to say, I need to create space so that my system can calm down, so that I can listen and pay attention, and I can become more aware. So this is a superpower. It's something that we got to learn how to use, because I don't know that we're going to get less chaotic. I think we're going to have to learn stronger tools. So that's what I'm here to do. If this is something that you want some assistance with, you'd love to be coached, you'd love to have a conversation with me, by all means, give me a call. My name is Denise Dryden. You can find me on DeniseDrydenCoaching.com, and have a lovely Sunday and enjoy the ocean. Take care. Bye-bye.